Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast with Jackson and Kyle. I am Jackson, and I am joined here, as always, by the man who would never throw any obstacles or any objects whatsoever at the referees. Kyle, how are you doing?
Pretty good. That's actually not true though. Once I played AAU basketball, back in my young days, I threw a ball at a referee. So, yeah,
Why? Why would you do this?
I was not happy with the calls made during the game. I picked up my fourth foul. I didn't agree with the fourth foul. So
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't really like a throw, but he teed me up and gave me a pretty stern talking to after it. It was more like a chuck, like I was just upset and kind of flung it at him,
I
and he had
see.
turned his back a little too late. But he attributed to me throwing it at him, and so I don't know. Oh well.
All right. Well, Kyle and Cowboys fans apparently a lot alike. But Cowboys we will not be talking about today. Kyle, we have 4 games to preview. 4, I think, very interesting games in their own right. Just so you guys know how this show is going to work. We have a scoring system. We've been doing this all year, and what we're going to do is we each have now. It gets higher every week, so we have 14 points that we are going to bet on each game. If we get it right, that means no points get added to your score. If you get it wrong, that many points does get added to your score. It's like golf. You want the least amount of points possible. So Kyle has a 9-point lead. I made up a little bit of ground, but I got to make up more ground because we're running out of weeks.
Yeah. Picking the Patriots was pretty dumb, but I had to stick with my team no matter what.
Sure, I get that. I understand and I think you even said when you said it, like I'm doing this because they're the Patriots and I want them to win. Loki in the chat saying I'm mildly excited. Well, I hope mild excitement is what we expect here on the Sideline podcast.
No excitement's what we expect most of the time, but we'll take mild excitement.
Yeah, exactly. Mild excitement, very good. We should mention at the start of the show, we won't be doing a live stream on the Buccaneers game. Kyle cannot make it too, so no live stream. Also, Kyle, I decided, you know what? Don't get many opportunities to do this. I am going to the Buccaneers Rams game on Sunday.
Oh boy.
Mm-hmm.
So let's hope they win just for the sake of this show.
Mm-hmm.
Don't want to have to go on that night and have to hear you go into the game upset.
Yeah, that would be tough. But yeah, okay, so let's get into the let's get into the show. Let's start off with Bills at Chiefs, right? I mean, this is I think the marquee game. This is the Sunday night game. And Kyle, take it away. Who are you picking and how many points are you going to put on it? And then I'll give you my picks and then we'll get into it.
I'm risking 2 points on this game. I'm keeping this pretty mild. This is the closest game of the week for me. I think it's going to be really interesting to see back and forth of this one. I think I'm going to take Buffalo. So here, my problem with this is that at the end of the day, I think there's going to be a shootout. I don't really see a lot of situations where this can be a low scoring. It could be. These defenses have risen to the occasion a couple times, but I'm just looking at this game and I'm saying, okay, Kansas City's defense is at its most comfortable when it can play press man coverage and succeed at it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think press man coverage is going to work against Buffalo. Stephon Diggs is going to get open a lot. Dawson Knox can even get open in this game. And not to mention, man coverage against Josh Allen's a death wish because he can run for 100 yards in this game. So I think that's a huge problem for Kansas City, where I think we saw even in that game against the Patriots that guys can get open underneath against Buffalo's defense. I think we saw that. I think the problem is I think when Buffalo's defense is at its best is when you try and throw downfield on them, just because, I mean, Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer are, if not the best safety duo in the league, at least tier 1. And that's tough to throw on. But I think the problem is that, I think Chiefs are going to have stuff underneath that they could probably succeed with, but that means they got to constantly succeed with 12-play drives to keep up with Buffalo, and I don't see it happening. I'm going with the Bills.
Yeah, we had the same pick here. I'm also picking Bills, and I'm putting 2 points on it as well because I agree. I think that basically what you said is exactly right. I think that the Chiefs' offense against this, basically the way I view this is you can make the argument that these offenses are similar. I mean, you have the superstar quarterbacks. I think you do have weapons on each side as well. The flip side, though, is the Bills' defense is just so much better than the Chiefs' defense. And the last time these two teams played, and listen, a lot has happened since Week 5 when these teams last played. But for one thing, that was the game that caused Daniel Sorensen to stop getting so much playing time. That was kind of the end of Daniel Sorensen as every snap player in that one because he gave up 2 huge completions in that one. But I do think that, like, you saw the Chiefs, and when they try to play this zone coverage against the Bills, they're just guys wide open. Like, they're not that good at it. I think you have to play man. You have to play what you're at your best at, and just eat the eat the Josh Allen runs, eat the occasional big chunk play to Dawson Knox. I thought they did an okay job when they did play man coverage the last time they played. With the exception of Daniel Sorensen. So, don't have Daniel Sorensen be the starter and play man. I think that's their best shot. It's not going to shut them down, but I think it could give you an opportunity.
Yeah, I just imagine that, like, I feel like if they do that, which they probably will because it's what, like you said, it's what they're best at. I just see like Josh Allen converting like 7 third downs with his legs, right? It's not necessarily that I think he's going to have a billion yards. I just think he's going to have these big runs whenever he can. And I just don't know how the Chiefs adjust to that. I really don't, because I think that they're this is their defense. This is what Spagnuolo likes to run. They like to bring pressure. And I just don't know if it's going to get to an Allen enough to make a difference in this game.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say, like, I think that's a win for Kansas City. I think if Josh Allen is trying to run for 7 first downs, I think you're winning in terms of just what you expect against this Bills offense, because this is an offense that can light you up. You saw it very firsthand, Kyle. This is a very talented team, and I think that getting them to have to sort of similar to the strategy that teams do against Kansas City, it's not exactly the same, but you're not allowing these huge chunk plays to happen. You're not allowing 15+ yard plays to happen as consistently.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, so we talked about it a little bit, but it's never fun to bet against Patrick Mahomes, and that's what we're
Right.
both doing this week.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we started to see some semblance of Kansas City's offense. I mean, we started to see it a little bit at the end of the season, but we saw it definitely last week. They had these huge chunk plays. They had these kind of crazy situations. And while obviously the Bills' coverage unit's a lot better, so there's probably less opportunities for that. I think
Mm-hmm.
that they've started to show that they can do different things. Like, couldn't you see Jerick McKinnon? Now, it's the same situation for Buffalo's defense. You say, okay, if Jerick McKinnon's their best offensive player, that's a win for
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo. But at the
Right.
same time, couldn't you see him having this huge day, catching the ball out of the backfield and kind of killing this defense that way?
I could. I could see a lot of. I think the variance of what could happen in this game is bigger than any other game. Like, I think either one of these teams could win in a blowout. I think this could be a high scoring game. I think this could be a low scoring game. I think there's a ton of different possibilities for this one. For one thing, like, what Josh Allen are we going to see and what Patrick Mahomes are we going to see? Because, like, the difference between a good Josh Allen day and a bad Josh Allen day, and the difference between a good Patrick Mahomes day and a bad Patrick Mahomes day are just so huge from what we've seen this year.
Yeah. It's going to be really interesting, and I'm really interested not only to see these teams just attack these teams downfield and then in red zone situations, because, I mean, it's kind of a variance in styles too. The Chiefs blitz a lot; they bring a lot of pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Do they adjust that in this game, saying, okay, we need to cover? Coverage is the most important thing in this game. And does that affect their red zone defense too? Do they sit back in coverage and try and make Allen throw through tight windows? The Bills kind of do that already. And can
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Mahomes hit those tight windows in the red zone? Like, I could see, like, another situation I guess I could really see too is that these teams get a bunch of yards on each other, but then are stuck settling for field goals.
Interesting. Yeah, I also think I wouldn't be shocked to see a lot of teams go for it. I think this is the kind of game where if it's 4th and 3 inside the red zone, you probably see teams going for it this time. And also, one other thing is you talk about the blitzing with Kansas City. Well, Kansas City didn't blitz a ton the first time, and I feel like they should probably maybe try that more. I think teams are afraid to blitz against Josh Allen, but you can have success doing it. I think don't be afraid to send some pressure is what I would do. Because again, it's not about Josh Allen. It's about who is Josh Allen throwing to. And Diggs is obviously awesome, but they don't have a ton else. So you can man up okay against the Bills receivers.
Yeah. It's going to be a really fascinating matchup. I guess, just looking at it, because these teams have so many playmakers, and obviously some elite level playmakers when you're looking at Diggs, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. Who would you say is the two it's a cliche line, but who are the two X factors in this game where you say, like, if that guy's having a good game, their team's probably winning?
I mean, the first two I think about are Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, right? I mean, that seemed like the obvious answer, but not taking those two out of the equation, I think that for Kansas City, I guess it's probably Travis Kelsey. It's probably if they're getting these, zone coverage, getting it over the middle, the stuff working. That usually is with Kelsey. That's probably the way I would think about it. And then the flip side for the Bills, I'm not gonna pick one answer, but I'll say any receiver other than Diggs. If one of those secondary guys steps up, I think that would be a big X factor for the Bills.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, obviously, you're looking at one of the better coverage linebackers in the NFL, Matt Milano, in
Mm-hmm.
that zone defense against Travis Kelsey. I think that's a huge matchup in this game. There's a ton of, like, you just look at, like, this is why we wanted this game in the playoffs. We wanted it in the AFC Championship. We're getting in the second round. But you just look at it's like star after star. We're not even giving Trey White out there, but it's just like
Mm-hmm.
there are stars across so many things, and all these stars are kind of matched up against each other when you're looking at, Milano against Kelsey, when you're looking at, Tyrann Mathieu in that secondary against Stephon Diggs, when you're looking at Chris Jones trying to get after Josh Allen, when you're looking at just these matchups, I think it's a fascinating game.
Kyle, let me throw this at you. Everyone's been looking for the next Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning rivalry, and we're probably never getting something like to that level ever again. But is this maybe the real? Yeah, I think we kind of like Mahomes and Lamar Jackson a little bit, but Mahomes and Josh Allen can kind of become that rivalry, right? I mean, these are two teams that are set up to be good for a long time. These are two teams that are now playing each other for the second time now in a big playoff matchup. How do you like that comparison a little bit?
I can see it. Obviously, they got a
Mhm.
lot more games that they need to get under the
Of
belt,
course. Mhm.
but you know, these were what two teams that played each other. I'm trying to think off the top of my head now. These two teams, these two, they played each other last year. They played each other last year in the playoffs, and obviously that was a huge Kansas City win. But
Mhm.
I think it was kind of a humbling experience for Buffalo, who's now, it's kind of talked about where like you kind of need to learn to lose, even though Patrick Mahomes didn't really learn to lose in the playoffs. He kind of just got there. Although
Well,
he
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 did the
did,
same. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm. Go ahead.
Josh Allen has a lot of playoff experience under his belt now.
Mhm.
In retrospect, compared to some of these other guys, he's got a few years under his belt. He took the lumps in that Kansas City game. They really addressed they addressed their defensive line because they felt like that was the biggest thing from that game. They took away was that defensive line was lacking. They addressed some of their other pieces, and now they're back in this spot to try and get that redemption. So I could definitely see the situation where these two go back and forth at it for the next decade.
Yeah, should absolutely be fascinating. I guess one more thought about this game before we move on. Is this people are saying this? I want to throw this question out there. Does this feel like the true AFC Championship game?
I don't want to discount Tennessee and Cincinnati,
Mhm.
but like I think they're good teams that are capable of winning the AFC Championship game.
Mhm.
But I would probably pick this team to win the AFC Championship game, the winner of this game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think that I don't think this is it's fair enough. I think Cincinnati and Tennessee have done too much good stuff this season to not give them the respect that they deserve and to say that this is the true AFC Championship game, even though I have heard that said. But I also agree. The reality is the winner of this game will be the biggest favorites to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
I think it's a fascinating matchup. And yeah, I mean, I would say if I were power ranking it, these are the best two teams in the AFC.
Yeah, should be interesting. Let's move on. Let's go to the game that we teased at the beginning. The Rams going to here to Florida. Uh, Rams and Buccaneers. Kyle, who are you picking and how many points?
Uh, like I, I have Tampa Bay in 4 points, but I feel terrible about it. Like
Okay.
But I'm going to take Tampa Bay. I don't see, I think Brady's going to find a way to win this one. I think Tampa Bay is going to find the way to win this one. All the talk about like Bruce Arians doesn't lead a disciplined team or anything. Tampa Bay is the least penalized team in football. I think this coverage unit's a lot healthier than the last time these two teams played. I think this defense is going to be a lot better than the last time these two teams played. And I don't want to overreact to a really good Matthew Stafford game, but we still saw signs in the last few weeks of the season that Stafford was either hurt or slipping a little bit. So I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense to kind of get this done and Brady do enough to win this game over Stafford. And so I'm taking the Bucs in 4 points.
Yeah, I see the Tennessee Titans logic in the chat. Just going back a little bit, saying Titans beat both the Bills and the Chiefs, but okay, that's a fair point. But anyways, back to this game. I'm also picking Tampa Bay. I'm only putting 2 points on it, so you're higher on it than I am. But here's my thought: is I went back and rewatched that game, and the more I watched it, because it's funny how we kind of both changed our opinions on this. Because when we talked about it, or at least I don't know if you changed your opinion on who's going to win, but I remember when we both said we liked the Rams +3 on the Monday night podcast. But the more I think about it, I think the Buccaneers did a fine job offensively the last time these two teams played each other. I think that they were able to, they were able to methodically move down the field. They were able to run these zone busters relatively effectively. And tight ends can have a big day against this Rams defense. And I think that that's where Tampa Bay could really have some success is with the Rob Gronkowski and the Cameron Brates of the world really having being able to make stuff happen. Is it going to be like a monster day? I don't think so. My final prediction is the Rams 28, Buccaneers 30. But I do think that this is maybe a better matchup for the Buccaneers offense versus the Rams defense than people realize.
Yeah, and obviously the big thing is going to be Tristan Wirfs, which I'll be honest, I'll be pretty surprised if he plays on Sunday or
Mm-hmm.
Saturday. Like, if he's not missing any time from a high ankle sprain, that'll just be kind of amazing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but that being said, like I thought the Rams covered really well last week, and they did. They did a pretty good job coverage last week, especially against the Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
But I also thought there was things Kyler missed. I thought
Yeah.
there was opportunities that Kyler missed open guys, especially off blitz protection, that kind of thing. I thought he made mistakes and the Rams left guys open. And Brady just doesn't miss those things. You know, he's going to see those blitzes coming from a mile away. He's going to see those leaked out running backs from a mile away too, and see those big play opportunities off those checkdowns. I think Brady's just going to be able to dial it up against this team, like you said. They had some success in the last game, and I think Tampa Bay's defense has improved enough, mainly because of health, but just improved enough that they're gonna eke this one out.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of the interesting thing is like I think we can look at that game and say, okay, this is how the Buccaneers offense kind of matched up against the Rams defense. But the other side of that ball, it's like so much of it is we basically just have to throw out. I mean, Tampa Bay were the only corner that started in this game, and that game that will start in this game is Carlton Davis because Jamel Dean was hurt and Sean Murphy Bunting was hurt. So that's a fascinating aspect. Also, Deshaun Jackson was one of the Rams' best players in that game. He's no longer on the team, although they have Odell Beckham Jr., who should fill that role nicely. But I think it's really difficult to exactly see how this could work. But I do think that Tampa Bay, like you're right. I mean, Tampa Bay, when they're healthy, is a really good defense, and this is another issue where I think that I'm expecting and I'm banking on Tampa Bay's defense to do a very good job in this one.
Yeah. So I guess the interesting thing is going to be is because there's no confirmation that Murphy Bunting's going to play, right?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. I thought the last I saw, he's still nursing an injury. So I think last week what we saw a lot of Edwards, Winfield, and Whitehead on the field, if I remember correctly, and they got Ross
Mhm.
Cockrell too. Is this could come down to the end of that tertiary matchup where if you have, Cup, obviously, you have Beckham, you got, Dean and Davis matched up with those guys kind of thing. How does the third guy kind of match up with that Van Jefferson? Because I mean, I think Van Jefferson's a pretty good number 3 receiver. You know,
Mhm.
could he have a big game in this one? And is kind of what helps the Rams offense because I do think Murphy Bunting is an important player for this Bucks defense still.
Yeah, so that's a good point. That it has not been announced yet, and that's something that could happen here. Although I should mention, you have the depth has performed well for Tampa Bay when they've came in, and that's kind of another thing is maybe that's worth mentioning is okay, the Buccaneers might have a good defense. Well, the Rams have Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham Jr. and Van Jefferson, so no matter how good you can cover, like they're gonna get stuff open eventually.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think that will too. I think this is going to be a fun game. Um,
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna lean Buccaneers, and I think this is gonna be a close game. I risked a lot of points on this, but
Yeah.
I do feel like I just trust Brady in these situations. You know, call me a fanboy all you want, but I mean the track record speaks for itself.
Yeah, I think that with the Buccaneers, I think it's fascinating where their offense should be able, like the way I view their offense. For one thing, I think they should rarely run the football. I think that you could try it, see if it's working. But last game it wasn't working. Tom Brady was their leading rusher in that one, and I think don't run the football just because you want to have shown after the game that you established a run, right? Like if it's not working, don't do it. And I think that basically what the Rams are challenging Tampa Bay to do is have to get a lot of quick passes and a lot of underneath stuff going. And that's kind of what Tom Brady thrives at. I mean, they're challenging Tom Brady to run these 12-play drives, which we typically say is a good thing. And I still think it's like, okay, every offense is at its best when you can push the ball down the field. But it's not like Tom Brady won't be able to do this. But just the flip side is, will there be mistakes? It might not be Brady. It might be, we saw like in the Philadelphia Eagles game with a dropped Tyler Johnson pass, stuff like that. You get these mistakes to happen. That's how the Rams should be able to slow Tampa Bay down a little.
Yeah, and obviously the Rams run his own defense, so it's not a like-for-like matchup, but I imagine we'll see a lot of them on each other. How do you feel about this? See Mike Evans last week. How do you feel about this Mike Evans-Jalen Ramsey matchup on certain downs?
Yeah, it should be interesting. Mike Evans had a good day on Darius Williams the last time these two teams played. So obviously, I think for Tampa Bay, you might just say, let's move Mike Evans around. Let's not just try to avoid that matchup because that's possible to do. It's not always, it's not like Jalen Ramsey's on the side of the field. He might not always follow with him. So if he does, that's what you want to do. But I think I like Jalen Ramsey's to match up well against Mike Evans. I think that Ramsey's one of the few corners who can run with Evans and also is physical enough that he's not going to get overpowered by Evans. That's that's kind of Evans's strength, right? Is he's this big, huge guy who can also move. Well, Ramsey is physical enough that he can match up with him. So I like Ramsey in that matchup.
Yeah. And then, so I guess the last question is too, that I'll throw at you is, Tampa Bay, I mean, we know Todd Bowles' defense, number one blitz percentage in the league. They get a ton of pressure that way, obviously. But we've also seen Todd Bowles, especially last year when they really needed to change things up, kind of drop into a more coverage situation, except, okay, our coverage is the strength of this team. We can drop into some zone. We can make it difficult on quarterbacks that way. Do you see him amping up pressure in this game, or do you see him dropping back into coverage again?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. So the Buccaneers blitz more than any team in football, and Matthew Stafford has the best passer rating against the blitz. So that's a glaring issue. I don't know, because typically I feel like Todd Bowles is someone who learns from his mistakes, and he's someone who says, okay, well, if I did this and it screwed up, I'm not going to do it again. But like I said, that first game was almost a throw out the tape game in terms of how the Buccaneers defense went up against the Rams offense. There's things you can learn, but it's not like a lot. So I think that they should play a good amount of coverage, but I also think they should play a lot of man coverage. Like, you can run like a cover 2 man. I still think that this defense would be amazing in that kind of defense. So I think that's what they should do. My guess, though, if I gun to my head, I think we probably will see a decent amount of zone in this one, and I don't think we'll see as much blitzing, but we still will see probably some zone blitzes.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, he did it the entire playoff run last year. He was willing to adjust his game plan. He was able to slow down Breeze, Rodgers, and Mahomes off of that. And I think this is going to be another one of those games where he's going to have to say, okay, I know this is what I like to do, but to do what's best for the team, I'm going to have to adjust again. And that's why I think Tampa Bay is just going to win because of those things.
Yeah. Well, so let's, some people talking about kind of what we brought up. So not running is going to make Tampa Bay too one-dimensional against the Rams defense. My thing, though, about that is play actions don't really work against the Rams. They don't fall for that stuff. They already just drop back into coverage, and they have such a good defensive line that they're going to stop the run anyways, basically. So it's I've always said, okay, running the ball is important, but the reason why you run the football is to set up the passing game. And, okay, run the ball every now and then. I'm not saying, literally never run the football. I'm just saying you want to make this a very pass-heavy attack against the Rams. It's not a good strategy to be donating downs too frequently.
Could it be that this game is kind of one, depending on Tampa Bay is going to have to use a lot of pre-snap motion in this game, more so than any play action or running the football, where it's moving, like you said, moving Evans around the field, even moving Gronk around the field and having him in different situations. Maybe he goes some old school stuff and is split out wide a little more in this game. Or, you move Fournette around the ball if he's able to play in this one. Those kind of things are going to be more important in this game.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Also, another X factor here for the Rams is what Matt Stafford are we going to see. We talk about the variance with Mahomes and with Josh Allen, but as a Buccaneers fan, it's kind of a scary thing going up against Stafford because if we get Stafford when he's on, the Rams are probably winning this football game.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, The Rams, I don't remember a game they've lost this year where Stafford was great,
Right.
basically. Like, it's basically like if the offense is slowed down a little bit, they're beatable. But at the same time, it's kind of tough to beat this team when he's rolling.
Yeah. So it should be I think a very fascinating game. And also, hey, two of the better defensive tackles in the league. Obviously, Aaron Donald, and then on the other side, Vita Vea. Fun stuff.
Yeah. This is
Mhm.
another game with a lot of star power. We wanted to see these two teams in the playoffs. Um, I mean, these are two of the best three teams in the NFC, too. So I think it's going to be a great matchup.
Here's my, I guess, one more question about the Rams. If the Rams lose this game, does this Stafford thing count as a success or no? I mean, they end up going as far as they went last year. Does this count as a? How do we feel about this season? Looking back on it, if the Rams end up losing here in the divisional round.
Well, people are going to overreact and say it was a failure. But I mean,
Hmm.
listen, I'm still going to go hot take. I'm still going to say Matthew Stafford's better than Jared Goff. And that's the right move, no
Hmm.
matter what. I think upgrading at quarterback's important. I don't think it's a 1 year move either. I think they're gonna be okay next year too. And I think he's going to be important for that run next year. So I still say it's okay either way.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I guess one more thing. We can just write this off as the Odell Beckham Jr. thing is a total success, right? And this is like more teams should go after star players when you can get them for basically free.
Yeah, I mean, the first time he caught a touchdown pass was a success, and then caught a
Right.
touchdown in basically every game he's played.
Uh,
So absolutely a success.
yeah. It should be a fun one. Looking forward to it. Let's move on. Let's go to so there's two games left. Let's go Bengals Titans here. This is again a really, I mean, all these games I think have a lot of intrigue here. This one might be the one I'm most interested in, just in terms of how it's going to work out. Bengals at Titans. Titans are if they're playing at home. They're 2-point favorites. Kyle, who do you have, and how many points are you putting on it?
I'm putting 2 points on this game, and I'm going to take the Tennessee Titans. I guess there's a couple things to this. It sounds like Trey Hendrickson is going to play, but there is some injuries on that Cincinnati defensive line, which I think is just going to be a problem. Obviously, with Derrick Henry coming back, and even if Henry's snap count is limited, I think Dante Foreman's pretty good too. Like I think he's a pretty decent back to help them out too as a 1-2 punch. I think that's going to be able to work in their favor. I think AJ Brown could have a big game in this game. Um, I think I think Cincinnati might have success in this game, but I still believe in Tennessee and what they're able to do. I got Tennessee winning this game.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. I have Tennessee. I'm putting 2 points on Tennessee to win as well. So again, we're in lockstep here. We're gonna have a very similar board by the time this is all said and done. I have the Titans beating the Bengals 23-22. So I think this is going to be a close game. I do like Tennessee in this one. The first thing that jumps out at me right off the bat is how the hell is Cincinnati going to stop Derrick Henry?
Yeah, and especially if I think they're missing what, two defensive tackles. I get DJ Reader's awesome, but at the same
Hmm.
time, like if there's nobody else there, that's going to be a huge issue.
Hmm.
I think that he can rush for a lot of yards in this game. I think he can have a lot of success. Um, and then it comes down to how disciplined is Tennessee's or Cincinnati's secondary going to be in this game when they do go play action, because Tennessee is going to go play action off of that, off of those situations. How disciplined are they going to be against AJ Brown, against this Tennessee passing game, when Tannehill can still make throws? Tannehill's still a really good quarterback and is still as efficient as ever in this game. So I think it's going to be really tough to slow down this Titans offense.
Yeah. Statistically, yeah, the Bengals, I believe they're the 20th ranked run defense in football according to PFF. So, now that they're banged up on top of it, that's not great. Not good in this situation because, obviously you have a really good running attack going after you. We've seen Derrick Henry do this come postseason time, is run all over teams. The flip side, of course, or not the flip side, but to add on to this, kind of like you said, if they're playing zone coverage, this means that play actions are going to work better. You're going to get guys more open. And at first, when I went back and was making my video for this, what I did was I wanted to see sort of a similar matchup. And my first thought was, how about Cleveland, right? They run the ball a lot. We'll run play actions. Cleveland, okay, the last time they played was basically throw out the tape because it was, Cincinnati didn't play their starters. But the first time they played, Cleveland got the better of Cincinnati and really had a great offensive day. I'm worried that'll happen again against Cincinnati. I'm not sure how much it'll happen because, again, listen, relying on the running game, even when it's Derrick Henry, That's not a great pathway to get a ton of points, but it's a pretty good pathway to get a decent amount of points. So I think Cincinnati will be able to do solid, but I do think that the Titans should be able to have success there.
Yeah, and obviously, Christian Fulton, this Tennessee secondary going up against the Bengals receivers is going to be the big matchup that everyone's
Mhm.
looking at. This Titans secondary, this Titans team is 10th in dropback EPA and 5th in success rate in the NFL right now. So I think that they're doing a lot of really good stuff. Um, Bengals, I think at their essence are still kind of a vertical passing team too. And I just think too, not to mention, like I think what we saw in that Raiders game is some of the underneath stuff worked, especially, I think Chase kind of had a field day in those situations. But if they do
Mhm.
decide to go downfield, I mean, you're just taking a big risk doing that with Kevin Byard back there. And if Kevin Byard's able to do stuff and, make big plays in this game, it, does that kind of throw off what Cincinnati wants to do offensively? I think that's the big thing too.
Yeah, I find this fascinating. For one thing, we're definitely seeing some arguments in the chat, which is always fun. These are the two we don't get enough respect teams. The Titans and the Bengals are
Mhm.
very much. So we probably didn't help that too much by asking if the Chiefs Bills was the real AFC Championship game. But we both said no. So at least there's don't put your pitchforks down for now. Yeah. Well, what's interesting is the Titans play a lot of quarters coverage, none of the skies, and play cover three and stuff like that. Maybe similar how a San Francisco does it. To give another example, it's a matchup that works well against the Bengals. Now the Bengals are going to get their points. The Bengals are a very good offense. And we saw last week where even if Jamar Chase can't beat you down the field for 40 yards, he can still beat you down the field for 15 yards. So you're going to get your points. You're going to move the ball down the field. But I do schematically think that this is the kind of defense that can slow Cincinnati down, although they won't be able to hold them. And of course, the other side that gets me concerned a little bit is it's a cover two zone. And as great as Zach Taylor has been these past few weeks, I still have this thing in my back of the head of please don't feel like you have to run the ball 30 times. Which again, maybe I shouldn't still think that way because he's been very good these past few weeks, but I can't wash that taste out of my mouth just yet.
Yeah. This is going to be a pretty fascinating game. And like, is this game going to be weirdly higher scoring than we think? Just because the way Tennessee plays, obviously with running the ball, that they're going to want to try and limit possessions a little bit. But at the same time, if Henry has the success we think he can, couldn't there be more possessions than we potentially think?
Yeah, I think that makes. I mean, well, I think if the Titans are running the ball a lot, then there probably won't be a ton of possessions. So I think that's my thing. I think that both offenses probably would do a decent job. I just don't know how much they will get the ball, basically.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't. I almost put 1 point on this. I really don't know. I think this is
Yeah.
going to be one of the tightest games. I don't really feel comfortable with either team. I see both teams finding ways to have success, and I think just in that situation, I'm just going to take the Titans because I feel more comfortable with that team. I do think they're a little bit better of a team still right now. So I think both teams could have a lot of success though. I see a situation where both teams winning in a variety of different ways.
Yeah, a lot of people are bringing this up. One Nation Under Flawed says, "Who's the Bengals quarterback?" I mean, yeah, that's people bringing up. It's interesting because I'm a Tannehill guy, but I think you have to say the Bengals do have a quarterback advantage in this one, and that obviously
Yeah.
matters.
No, I completely agree.
Hmm.
I mean, Burrow is playing like a top 5 quarterback in football, so you can't say that. Even as much as as we like Tannehill, this is definitely a pro Tannehill podcast.
Hmm.
You can't say that he's anywhere near what Burrow's doing this season. So
Hmm.
it's going to be really interesting to see those two go back and forth.
Yeah, and there's also the how healthy is Derrick Henry, or he'll be back, but to what degree? What Derrick Henry are we seeing in this one? So that's another interesting aspect here, I think. So there's a lot of intrigue, and again, neither one of us are saying that this is a big oh definitely the Titans are going to win. I'm saying the Titans are going to win by a point. So it's fascinating. One other thing that I keep thinking about too is the Titans have gotten an extra week here. They get the bye week. They earned a bye week. They were able to sort of game plan for several different teams. They probably looked at the matchup, said, okay, who's it likely we're going to play? Cincinnati's definitely a good opportunity. We'll play them. So let's, spend some of our time looking at film for them already. They've gotten this head start and they're more rested. That does matter.
Yeah. Yeah, especially with this team needed to get healthy too. So, getting that extra week I think was huge. Um, yeah, I mean, I completely agree with everything you're saying. I think this is going to be really close. I mean, I don't really know. Like, I don't know what else to say analysis wise because it's just like I see both of these teams winning. I'm just taking Tennessee because I feel more comfortable. I've seen that team more in this spot, and that's why I'm taking them.
Yeah. I guess a couple other interesting factors here is one thing. I talk a lot about how what's the most important aspect of football. It's having good receivers, having a good quarterback. That's statistically what works, and in the postseason, it's actually even more dramatic, where that's what uh helps you. I looked at, uh, you know, so I went back and I checked and saw like, okay, what receivers typically like where do you need to rank in receiving core to have a good chance at like going to the Super Bowl? And you look at the past 10 years, there's been 20 teams that have made the Super Bowl. All of them have had a top 15 receiving core in PFF grade. Titans are currently at 16. So maybe you could say, okay, whatever. They had some injuries. But that's also, I think, an interesting factor is the Titans have a worse quarterback and a worse receiving core. Now they cover better, but that's an interesting factor here.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, I mean, it's almost scary now to pick against this Cincinnati offense, right? I think that's kind of what we're getting at is that picking against what we've seen from Chase this season, what we've seen from Burrow, what we've seen from these other guys, it's terrifying to pick against this team. I think this team's going to be in the conversation for the next 5 or 6 years if they keep all these guys, they stay healthy, all that kind of stuff. Picking against these guys is legitimately terrifying because it's a passing league now. Passing dominates football. I think that those guys might be able to dominate this game.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it should be a really fascinating matchup. But again, this is a different Titans team. I mean, this Titans team is they've been finding ways to win all year. They have a really good resume. So that's why I think the Titans have earned the right to be favored in their first playoff game after getting the 1 seed. Although I should mention, hey, last time the Titans had the 1 seed, they lost in round one. They lost to the Baltimore Ravens. That was rookie Joe Flacco.
That was who?
Rookie Joe Flacco beat the Titans the last time. That was the Vince Young Titans with the 1 seed with Jeff Fisher.
Oh, well.
I don't know why.
I
I don't know
mean,
why
there's nothing
that.
better than Joe Flacco in the playoffs, so there's no point of even comparing the two.
True. Very, very true. So should be a fascinating game. I guess we'll see what happens. I guess we can move on. We're going a little fast here, but it's good stuff. Let's go to the Niners Packers here, Kyle. How many points and who you picking?
I'm taking Green Bay. I'm putting 6 points. I feel pretty good about this team. I think I said after like week 12, I bet this team to win the Super Bowl, and I still feel like they're the best. They're the team to beat right now in the NFC. I like a lot of what they do. I think that they can win on offense in a variety of different ways. I think that they can win obviously with Aaron Rodgers because he's the best quarterback in football and probably going to win MVP this year. They can win the ball, or they have great receivers. Devontae Adams, obviously one of the best. I think Alan Lazard's underrated. I think, they have guys that can make plays. Good offensive line, obviously, that Rodgers helps because he's so great with the snap count. And they can run the ball, too. They establish it on the ground. Aaron Jones has always been pretty good. A.J. Dillon adds a little bit of size to that combo, too. I think that offense, no matter what, is going to find a way to have success. Looking at the defensive side of the ball, obviously you got Jair Alexander coming back. I think that's going to be a huge boost to this Packers defense, which – yes, there is the chance that San Francisco could torch them on the ground. I think people are looking way too much into that, though. I think Green Bay has way more success in this game and wins.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting game. So I'm picking the Packers and I'm putting 8 points on it, which is certainly a lot. And it's not because I'm like, oh, the Niners stand no chance at winning this. It's more so I think the other three games are so close that I don't want to put too many on that. So I'm putting a good chunk on the Niners at Packers here. I am picking the Packers. My final score prediction is 33-25. Yeah, I want to start off there because I keep hearing this good matchup for San Francisco. And we kind of touched on it a little bit the last podcast, but like, the Packers did a good job at stopping the run last time. And you can say what you want about which halfbacks were in, but they were not allowing them to run block well. Like that's something that's going to carry over game in and game out. I think Green Bay doing a good job at that stuff should carry over. I think that that's something that I expect will happen again. Maybe it was a small sample size, and maybe that stuff won't happen again. But I don't know if it's as simple as like, oh, I guess here's what I'm going to say. the 49ers aren't winning this game by throwing the ball 8 times like they did in the NFC Championship game a few years ago. Like, that's not happening.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
completely agree. So I think, listen, San Francisco has, you know, they had a little bit of success last week, but at the same time, this still is not a coverage unit that I would call good. They're
Mhm.
21st in EPA. That they defend the run really well, but I think too, if you look at their, just what they've been able to do this season, all of a sudden, if Nick Bosa is not 100% or even playing with that concussion on a short week, and then you have Fred Warner not at 100%. How does that affect this defense too? Is Green Bay just going to be able to do whatever it wants against this defense? I mean, I think that's honestly possible. Just seeing what we've seen out of Green Bay this year.
Yeah, Ryan in the chat breaking up. There's some offensive line differences as well. Listen, these teams are very different than what they were week 3, so that's a fair point. Maybe I shouldn't put too much stock into that, but I guess my point really is, even if the 49ers have a good day running the ball, I don't think that's enough. They're going to have a fantastic day running the ball to run away with this one. And the thing I keep going back to is, I'll say this much: if Davante Adams were to get hurt, I would take San Francisco to win by a touchdown instead of to lose by 8 points. I think he means that much to this team. I don't know what you do with Davante Adams on the field. It seems like when you double team him, he's still open. Like, he's just one of those guys. I don't know, and especially in this zone coverage scheme that the 49ers like to do, it's just you're getting so much gravity when guys go to him, the other stuff gets open, and if you don't respect him, well, then he'll torch you. Like, there's not a lot you can do. San Francisco tried something last game where they tried to play a lot of like cover one man a little bit towards the end, because they're saying like, hey, we're making too many mistakes here. Let's just put a guy on Adams. And basically, the one way Adams, you could argue, the one weakness he has is he isn't the fastest receiver, right? I think his 40 time was like 4, 5, 6. So that's not, who cares, because he does everything else so well. But basically, if Adams is running go routes, that's at least a defendable route for a corner. The issue is that if your legitimate strategy is let's leave Adams one-on-one for like 10 plays a game and hope that we can, hope that they don't convert that many of them, I don't know how winning of a strategy that is.
Yeah, and not to mention, it's not like you're looking at like, a superstar cornerback on the outside.
Right.
I don't think any of these guys can be considered even close to that for San Francisco. So, I don't I kind of agree with you. I don't think there is a winning situation to defending Adams. And could this be like, we talked about Jamar Chase against Kansas City. If they go to that cover one man, which is what they ran against Chase for Kansas City, could he have that sort of performance against the San Francisco defense? I kind of think it's possible.
Yeah. I think it's true. And the flip side is, even if windows aren't huge, well, now you got Aaron Rodgers, you have to stop. Like, he's going to find, even if the windows are small, he can fit it through.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think that there's way too much in Green Bay's favor here. Plus, they're just a more talented team. There's way more talent on this
Yeah.
team, I think, overall on both sides of the ball, especially with Alexander back. I don't see I think it's just going to be tough for. I bet Packers -6. Basically, I think that they win this game. I feel pretty comfortable with them covering the spread too. I just I don't know how they're going to cover Aaron Rodgers. And then the other side, yes, they could run the ball very well in this game. They could run the ball terrifically. But then I still think there's going to be situations where Jimmy G is going to have to match Aaron Rodgers in this game. And I don't know if he's going to be able to do that. I think he's been good this year. I think he's been solid, but we've also seen him have like the most backbreaking interceptions ever. And if he has one of those in this game, it's going to be tough to keep up with Green Bay.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Two things. So I'll talk about the Jimmy G point in a second, but this is a good question. JD says at Jackson Cougar Sports, which I don't know if you have to but appreciate that regardless. How did the Bucks cover Adams last year? Why can't it be done? Well, a lot of what the Bucks did last year, first off, they didn't really, like, Adams had a pretty good day in that one, but the way they were able to kind of slow him down was like Carlton Davis just matched up well against Davante Adams. They played a lot of man, and it had safety help over him a lot. And Carlton Davis is a good enough corner that he can actually at least hold his own against Adams. Like, I don't know if San Francisco has that guy. It's not always a scheme thing. I think people pay sometimes too much attention to scheme, which, now listen, scheme obviously matters, and scheme can create upsets, but sometimes you have to have the talent. And I don't know if they have the talent there. And anything you want to add to that before we get to Jimmy G point?
No, I think you just about covered everything with that. I think it's, he just finds a way to have success in every game. So I kind of feel good with it.
Yeah. Back to the Jimmy G point. There's another thing where one of the things I did. So I was making a video, sort of seeing like what can we find out about who typically goes to the Super Bowl, what position value do they have, where are they good, where are they bad. And one interesting thing was, for a top 15. So look at just over top half of the league. No receiving core has made it to the playoff, or no team that's made the Super Bowl didn't have a top 15 receiving core. Also, only one team made it to the Super Bowl without a top 15 quarterback. That was the Peyton Manning Broncos in 2015. We're talking in the past 10 years. Garoppolo would fall under that list as well. So it's really hard to make the Super Bowl without a great quarterback. And I mean, they have a really good receiving core. So that's kind of the thing that's holding them, that's giving them a shot. And I think that's why they have a chance in this one. But I actually don't think the way that they win this football game is through the ground game. I think the way they win this football game is, pass the ball to Deebo Samuel and pass the ball to Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle.
Yeah. But that's just not who they are. That's not their identity. I think that,
Right.
Even if I think that they're going to go run before they go throw is the thing. And I think that, they might have success on the ground. And I think that helps them too. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how they're able to throw the ball. And then, how does, these Packers corners match up with Deebo Samuel? They're going to move these guys all around the field, put them in different situations, try and put them in mismatches. How did these guys in the secondary, not necessarily think about Alexander, though it'll be interesting to see what his health and stamina looks like in this game. But how do these guys like Eric Stokes, Kevin King, even, who, is Kevin King, how do these guys hold up against guys like Ayuk, against guys like Samuel if they're moving them around the field?
Yeah, and even like Rasul Douglas, who's been known to try to jump some routes, like, hey, we saw how that worked for Trayvon Diggs. So maybe there's some hope there for San Francisco. Like, listen, we're saying all this like about how we think Green Bay is the favorite. That doesn't mean we think San Francisco has no shot. There is a very real chance where San Francisco pulls off this upset. And I think that if they can get the ground game going, which is a real possibility, that should set things up for their passing attack. And they could end up having, I can easily envision them putting up 30 points in this game. I don't think that's crazy by any means.
Yeah, I agree. But I also see, Green Bay putting up 35.
No, sure. I'm not saying I think that they're going to win. I'm just saying, like, it's a real possibility that San Francisco could win.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's going to be pretty close. I think these two teams, I see both teams, another kind of one of those games where, similar to Tennessee and Cincinnati, I could see both teams having success in this game and doing exactly what they want to do on offense. But I just trust their talent in Green Bay a little bit more.
Yeah. I think I agree. So, we have 11 minutes left here. We're going to try to do an hour. Don't have a ton else to add. What do you have? Anything else about this game?
I guess the one thing we could talk about is, I think the one thing that we've been kind of waiting on to like kind of burn this Green Bay team, even though they clinched the 1 seed, is the Packers special teams has obviously been a problem this year.
Right.
Mason Crosby hasn't had his best year. All this kind of stuff. So does San Francisco have like a 3-point advantage off of that? Does San Francisco manage to have that sort of advantage by, Robbie Gould being a pretty good kicker and all this kind of stuff? Does that add to San Francisco, pulling off the upset?
Well, the interesting thing about that stuff, right, is, and it's not just special teams of kicking, but it's also been with, kickoff returns and punt returns and stuff like that, where it's like throughout the course of a 17-game season, those things tend to not matter too much. Like there's value there, especially the kicking, which we've been very much on the forefront of. Kicking is overrated. But like the other stuff, the kick returning over the course of a 17-game season, unless you have Devin Hester or Cordero Patterson, like the chances that you're not going to have a huge impact with special teams. But in the course of one game, you could have a huge impact. I think about the Packers versus the Bears, and that's certainly a concern for Green Bay. I think worth bringing up of what if they have a game like they had with the Bears on that primetime game where they give up a couple of big returns? Like, it's not out of the question that special teams could be the difference. Ask San Francisco when they played the Giants in that overtime game. Like, special teams can come into play.
Yeah, and if they have a couple big returns, it just makes it easier for Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Like,
Yeah.
Because I think we can all look at it and say, Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to match Aaron Rodgers. But if you're giving him short fields, if you're giving him easier opportunities, it makes it he doesn't have to match Aaron Rodgers, but he could still have success that makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah. Also, the great Overlap 618 in the chat. Overlap is back. This divisional preview brought to you by overlap618.com and all the endangered penguins around the world. Okay, great stuff there from Overlap. Thank you very much. Here's an idea. If you have any questions in the chat about this game or about any game in general, get those in there. Ask any questions you want to have us answer here. I guess, is there some weird voodoo just with this being 49ers Packers? Like, I know that that shouldn't make any sense, shouldn't matter, but couldn't you see something where if the 49ers have a long drive and they score a touchdown quickly, like couldn't you just see like that mental side of things start to come into play?
Uh, I think that's what people are talking about. Why they're picking
Mm-hmm.
San Francisco, honestly, is because of the
Uh-huh.
history of this matchup. Um, Basically, they had obviously the NFC Championship game a few years ago. You had the Colin Kaepernick game. You had all these, like you said, there are, in past years where this has gone in 49ers' favor. I just, I personally don't buy into it. It's a different team every year. But that's the conversation people are having.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen. I guess the one thing I'll say is like, kind of like 2 years ago, this happened, right? It was just 2 years ago that the Niners blew out the Packers in the NFC Championship game. Now, I still think those teams are very different just 2 years ago, but it's not like that's not we're talking like that when in the '80s when it happened.
Yeah, no, I agree. So
Okay, Zachary Stewart says, will Matt LaFleur coach better this playoff run than last playoff run? Well, really, I mean, all you have to do is not take a horrible field goal in the NFC Championship game, and I think you got a good shot.
yeah, go for trust Aaron Rodgers to make that play. Trust your offense. And we'll see if he learned from the mistake.
Yeah, this is a question. Won't Vaughn and Aaron Donald get to Brady? Obviously, Von Miller and Aaron Donald. It's certainly possible, and like maybe we should talk about that a little bit more. I guess the one thing I'll say is I think the Buccaneers get rid of the ball quickly enough that I don't think it'll be as big of a factor as people think it is. Again, I'm Mister Pass rush isn't as important. Here's another fun stat. I keep talking about teams that make the Super Bowl that finish in top 15 in certain positional categories. Kyle, half of the teams that made the Super Bowl in the past 10 years had a bottom half of the league pass rush.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, look, in a game though, I think they certainly
Sure.
can have success. And they certainly can dominate this game, especially with Tristan Wirfs probably not playing. But I think the idea is that, like we were saying, kind of in the preview, I think even though they brought pressure and they brought a lot of blitz, I think Kyler Murray missed opportunities to hit check downs, have quick passing situations, and Brady just doesn't miss those. He doesn't miss those situations. He can have he's perfectly content with having a 250-yard passing game where he's running a bunch of plays and just, getting the ball downfield slowly but surely.
Yeah. Although, listen, here's the flip side is that I could see when I'm making a big play at a big moment, right? Like you can definitely see, okay, when you're trying to run these methodical drives, when you have to run a 12 play drive, that gives Aaron Donald 12 shots to get to Brady.
Yeah, and even in the last game for Tampa Bay, you saw like when the Eagles, Brady's or the Tampa Bay offense stalled a couple times in the middle of the game. I mean, they had the lead, so it wasn't that big of a deal, and the defense was obviously playing exceptionally. But you saw when that team stalled a couple times, it had to do with third down sacks and those guys getting to Brady quickly. Um, it's certainly possible, if they have big third down plays where they're able to get to Brady, slow him down. You're probably running deeper passing techniques when it's third and long. If they can have that sort of success, sure, but they have to do it consistently because even if they stalled a couple times, Tampa Bay scored 31 points.
Yeah. Here's another good question. Do you think the Packers returning reinforcements can potentially be a liability? Rust, few days / weeks worth of practice, not having it. I think this is totally it's an interesting question. Oh, here, I took it off. I think that's an interesting question. I don't think that's out of the question. I think it's very possible, and this is kind of something that I think you brought up, and you were right about this. Of if guys were ready to play week 17, or week 18, they should have gotten some playing time week 18 because that allows you to, just get more practice time, get more reps where you're out of football shape. Out of football shape is a very real thing. Look at what happened week 1 with Green Bay when they didn't have a lot of practice in the preseason. Like it's a very real thing.
Yeah, I think it's certainly possible. I guess the one thing I will say from what I remember the report saying is that Alexander was practicing a little bit towards the end of the regular season,
Mm-hmm.
and then got on COVID protocols, and that's why he had to sit out the last game of the year. Uh, so if he had amount of practice time, I'm not overly worried about it. I think he's going to be 100% ready to go. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, it's certainly possible too that he struggles.
Yeah, and I should mention also like David Bakhtiari did get some practice, some playing time in Week 18. So those are the only snaps he's gotten this season. But those 27 snaps might make a difference.
Yep, it's going to be
Hmm.
interesting.
And also, I would also say I'll take a Jair Alexander basically in any circumstance over Kevin King.
Hot take. Wow.
Yeah, I know. Definitely a hot take here. Trying to see some, we'll take a couple more questions. I guess this one's one we could do. What's the over under on how many calls the refs will F up, Kyle? Over under, I don't know. Maybe like, I don't think I'll say over under is right at 2.
2.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think NFL Twitter is going to act like there's about 30,
Right.
but I think actually debatable calls. I'd say I'll go with 4. I think there's going to be, I think you could debate every game that there's a missed call. The one question I have for One Nation under Flawed is where do you get that Houday beer that's in his background in his picture? That looks awesome. I need that.
All right, yeah, maybe he can let you know. Maybe if you potentially tweet at Kyle a link at by Kyle Grondin.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I want Houday beer.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, no, I mean that's the very real thing about the refs, though, right? Is like any call that could be I saw this one thing, like one of the most obvious holds I've ever seen on. Remember in the Eagles game that we watched when there was the hold on Kelsey where he was falling back on Vea and just like brought him to the ground. Eagles fans were mad at that getting called a hold, like one of the most obvious holds you'll ever see. Like I just feel like people just complain.
Well, the thing is too is that there's a lot of niche rules that I think people don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Like so the Patriots fans, not that they're in this week, but I'll bring it up just because of the example. They've been calling every week for Matthew Judon to get more offensive holding calls against them, and they
Mm-hmm.
don't seem to understand that the rip through move negates holding. And
Right.
because he basically does a rip technique on every play, it looks like
Mm-hmm.
a holding because the guy has him by the neck, but he's ripping through the play, and that's why that happens. There's a lot of rules that I think people don't fully understand,
Mm-hmm.
like the Tuck rule in 2002, which we're getting a whole documentary for. I don't know why.
Well, hold on. The tuck rule was also a very debatable call, though. Even with the rule, that wasn't just people not understanding the rule.
Well, I think the thing is, so we're having this stupid show about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I thought the consensus was at the time and now that the rule is dumb, but as far as the rule goes, it's the right call. And that's why the rule doesn't exist anymore.
Well, that's the consensus. Oh, yeah. I thought you froze, but you just sort of stopped and didn't move for a second. That's the consensus, but I don't agree with the consensus. I think that there's that image of when Tom Brady has the ball in both of his hands right before it gets knocked out. My theory on it has always been I think that Tom Brady, because the rule is we're getting way sidetracked, but that's okay. We have a couple. This is how we'll end the show. My theory on a tuck rule has always been I think Tom Brady, when he actually lost the ball, it was when he hit his left hand. Because that's why you have that image of it hitting his left hand. But if you watch the video, he lost it right as it hit his left hand. But the rule itself is if it hits that other hand, it's not tucked anymore and it can be a fumble. And it looked like it happened right at that moment. I actually think that I don't think they should have overturned it. I think that there wasn't enough evidence on the field to overturn it.
Well, too late now.
All right. Well, we can next week. I think we'll just instead of talking about previewing the conference championships, we'll just talk about the tuck rule.
Yeah, Brady's done a lot of legacy stuff lately, right? Like it's like he has that coming. He did the whole man in the arena setup. Like he it's a lot of like, could this be his last year sort of stuff?
Yeah, it's pretty hilarious. I remember NFL Network did a top 10 Brady games after Super Bowl 51. And it's like, that's totally makes sense to do it. And it even had like a little like so far, like I was like, okay, maybe he'll find a way to do something else. And then like he's had like, you could make a top 10 Brady game since that moment.
Yeah, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty interesting stuff.
Also, I like this. Jackson is a hater, man. LOL. What have I done to hate? I feel like I haven't hated anybody this podcast. I've been as unhating as I've ever been in a podcast, and I'm usually a hater. Usually, I'll own that. But I feel like this podcast is one of my more jolly podcasts.
You clearly just hate Tom Brady. I mean, it's
Clearly, that's clearly
obvious.
I am a big Tom Brady hater. Yes, absolutely.
You just can't stand the guy having success. Um, obviously.
Oh yeah.
uh,
Also, just kidding. Love the show. Oh well, there you go. Got angry for nothing. This happens a lot. I feel like where I get angry at a comment and then the other person's like, "I'm just joking around."
yeah, there's a lot of trolls, but it's okay. We love JD. Keep coming back. Uh,
I also
what
like
else
this.
do we want to? What's that?
Oh, never mind. I misread a comment. Go ahead.
Oh, I said, what else do you want to talk about?
Uh, Nothing. I think we're good. Want to end the show?
I guess so. Hey, Dennis Schroeder's going off at the end of this Hornets Celtics game. That's good.
Oh, I thought you meant like in the chat.
No, apparently Dennis Schroeder's having a really good Celtics game.
Okay, I haven't been paying much attention to basketball this year, Kyle. I'll be honest.
Really? You're missing some good stuff.
Yeah, it's been a good season.
Cleveland Cavaliers, top 4 team in the East.
What? How is that possible? But is this
They
like
got
the Knicks, where like they're a good team, but you all know like they're never actually going to do anything?
Well, they're not going to do anything this year, but they're pretty fascinating because they got this guy with the 4th overall pick, and him falling to 4 is insane. Um, Evan Mobley, who's going to be he's basically going to be the next Anthony Davis, but he might be like healthier. And so they have like him and Jared Allen and Lauri Markkanen in their starting lineup. So they basically start 3 7-footers. When everyone's going small, they start 3 7-footers, and they have this point guard who's turning into an all-star too. So they're pretty interesting team.
All right, Kyle, I have an idea for a game. All right, I
Okay.
want you to pull up the NBA standings, and the game is I'm going to try and see if I can guess. I haven't been paying any attention. If I can guess, see how many like I don't know top 3 teams in each conference I can guess.
Okay. Yeah, go. I don't even need to pull it up. Go ahead and try and guess.
Okay, my first guess got to be the reigning champs, the Milwaukee Bucks, right?
Incorrect. They are not a top
Oh,
3 team in the East.
oh wow. Okay, big surprise here. Okay, I guess I'll go with part of me thinking about the Lakers, but then I'm also thinking I feel like I've heard some stuff about the Westbrook stuff not working out, so I may be a little bit hesitant to do that. I guess I'll go. How about the Brooklyn Nets?
Brooklyn Nets are 3rd place in the Eastern Conference.
Okay, all right. Let's see how many we can get. Give me 5 guesses. I want to see if I can go 3 for 5. I'm sure this is great. I'll go to Lakers. How are the Lakers doing?
They're not close. They're in the play-in spot right now.
Oh wow.
Actually, yeah, they're in the 8th seed, so they're in the play-in games right now. But they're a couple games out of the 6th spot, which would be out of the play-in. So we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's fascinating as well. I'm trying to think. The Clippers, are the Clippers good?
They're a 9 seed.
Oh my goodness.
So Kawhi Leonard's been out for the year. He's probably going to miss the whole
Okay.
season. And then Paul George got hurt in December, so he's going to miss some time. They might shut him down for the year too.
Okay. How about the? I'll go. How about the Mavericks? How are the Mavs doing?
Closer, they're a 5 seed. They
5.
started really slow. They had some injuries. Luka came in out of shape, but the Mavericks have been playing lights out basketball, and they got a top 5 defense in the NBA now.
Yeah. All right. What are the 3 teams? What are the 3 in each
Okay.
conference?
Well, let's go through this. So you're gonna
Mhm.
love this. Number 1 in the Western Conference, we'll start with that, is the Phoenix Suns.
Okay. I thought about them, but I was worried they were a little bit too old. I was worried about the Chris Paul being too old, perhaps potentially.
He's found new life since he's gone vegan. He's killing it.
Okay.
Number 2 seed in the Western Conference is the Golden State Warriors.
Oh,
Bouncing back with a healthy roster. Clay just came back beginning of January. They're looking
that's cool.
pretty good. And then number 3 seed is the Memphis Grizzlies.
Wow.
Because
How did I not guess them?
yeah, Ja Morant making the leap and
Wow.
turning into a top 15 NBA player has put them in that spot. Plus, Utah's dealing with some COVID stuff now, so they lost a few games in a row. Because they turned from Utah was like up there with Golden State and Phoenix, but they go from a top 5 defense with Rudy Gobert to the worst defense in basketball when he got COVID. So pretty interesting stuff there. The Eastern Conference you had absolutely no chance with. It's the Miami Heat number 1, the Chicago Bulls number 2, and then the Brooklyn Nets number 3. Who you got?
Wow, good for the Bull. I could have maybe guessed the Heat, but I would take me several guesses. Yeah. All right. Well, that was see what I know about basketball. Now maybe people who are like me, who basketball. I've always felt like basketball season starts after football season ends. So maybe we'll get into that and talk about it more. But yeah, okay. Well, that's your show. Thanks to everyone for listening to all of this silliness. Kyle, any final thoughts?
To answer Silent Toxic's question. My go-to Taco Bell order is the quesarito, the goat. Anyway,
I'm a big cheesy gordita crunch guy. No one asked me, but I'm going to say it anyways.
those are good. I like
Mm-hmm.
those. I mean, anything besides the chalupa, which is just like why do I want fried bread on top of Taco Bell food? Like, I don't get it. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
quesarito's good. You can still get it online. Anyway, am I plugging us now? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, do that.
Okay, make sure to follow us on Twitter and follow him at Jackson Kruger. Make sure to follow me at by Kyle Gronin, and make sure that you follow the account page at On the Sideline JK. That's at On the Sideline JK.
Yeah, Kyle. We all noticed you clearly point the wrong way when you went to say follow him.
No, oh, I did.
Yeah,
I did the wrong hand. I'm sorry.
Yes. Yeah. I was like no. I totally did it the right. Okay, it's funny because like you do it it's flipped. I see how you can make that mistake.
Yeah. So inverted camera. I'm sorry. I blew it.
Yeah. But yeah. All right. Kyle, any final thoughts before we head out?
Some awesome games this weekend. I mean, these are the best teams. This is when we're all looking forward to it. There's going to be some good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff again. Sorry, no live stream, but we'll still do the podcast on Sunday night. We're still gonna do midnight for that.
Yeah, I mean that sounds good. Is the game early? The game's earlier, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe the last game I believe is at 6:30 on the East Coast, which I mean it ends around like 9 or so. But I also have to, I'm gonna make a video for that. I have to. Maybe we'll because I'm trying to think now what would be the best plan, because
I mean, if
I'm gonna
anything,
be at my
move it up an hour, right?
Perhaps. The issue is, so the way this just logistically is going to work, since I'm going to the game on Sunday afternoon, I'm going to then go directly back to my parents' house to make a video for the Bills-Chiefs game because they live in Tampa, so I can, in the Tampa Bay area. It just makes things easier for me. So then I have to, after that game, I'll have to drive back to Orlando and then podcast here. So probably midnight would make sense just so I have enough time to get there.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, cool. Well, yeah. So again, thanks to everyone in the chat. We do appreciate it. Thanks to, if you are an audio only listener, we appreciate that. And if you prefer audio only, you can check. We get new fans every show. So if you are someone who prefers to listen to podcasts, check that out anywhere you get your podcast. On the Sideline Podcast should be available. Yeah, and I guess that's it. Until next time, see you later, alligator.
Peace.